It's a big, big week for the New York Jets as the NFL descends to Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine. Joe Douglas will speak on Tuesday. Robert Saleh will speak on Thursday. And we have even more quarterback news to get into in today's Jake Asman Show. So let's hit it and get it started. The Jets face one of their biggest offseasons in franchise history. It's playoffs or bust in 2023.
You're writing the story of your own life. Never allow another man to hold the pen.
Please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button down below. Super chat, baby. Cut the line. The pieces are in place. It's time for the Jets to put it together. Now, let's talk about the New York Jets. This is the Jake Asman Show. Here we go. Thanks for watching today's show. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. We didn't do a show yesterday. We took the day off because it's going to be a monstrous week of Jet coverage here on the channel. So do me a favor. If you're a Jet fan and you haven't hit subscribe yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button on the right-hand side of your screen. And please hit the like button down below as well. That helps the channel continue to grow. So let's talk about some news that came out in a recent piece that dropped in Albert Breer's MMQB column that he writes every week. In the piece, a couple big takeaways involving the New York Jets. The biggest one being that the Jets do not expect to work out any sort of deal with Derek Carr in the immediate future. Carr is expected to make more visits, according to Albert Breer. So let's start there. This shouldn't be a big surprise, right? We know for a fact Derek Carr is available. We know for a fact he can meet with any team, unlike, let's say, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not a free agent until March 15th. Now, this is where, full disclosure, the combine's where a lot of like the agent stuff gets done. You know, the agent and the teams kind of speak off the record, kind of work out the framework on a lot of deals. Trades maybe get discussed this week in Indy. So we'll get some nuggets, I'm sure, throughout the week. And we plan to have on both Will Parkinson and Cole Thompson on the show later this week, live from Indianapolis. But this shouldn't be a big surprise because Derek Carr's brother, David, was on the NFL Network and said that Derek is going to take his time with this decision. He doesn't need to rush into it. Free agency does not start until March 15th. So don't look into, well, there's no deal imminent between the Jets and Carr as, well, they're not signing Carr. I wouldn't look at it that way at all. The other thing to note here is that Carr is going to take some visits, according to Albert Breer. I'm curious to see what teams are going to be meeting with Derek Carr. We know he met with the Saints. He obviously met with the Jets last weekend. What teams will Derek Carr meet with? To this point, it's only two. It's only two. Now, some other nuggets in this story here from Albert Breer. And when it comes to Breer, I respect his insider knowledge here. Like when I come on and do a show, I'm not going to give you like crapola you see on the internet. I'm going to give you, tangible evidence from a reporter that I think is worth discussing. So in this story here, I found it interesting that Breer noted that Derek Carr is not going to get $35 million a year. It will be less. Now, Diana Rossini on ESPN reported that Carr is looking for around $35 million. I am surprised, to say the least. I mean, I don't know why the number is not as high as I thought it was going to be. I thought Derek Carr would be asking for probably closer to $40 million a year. Maybe it's because he's coming off a down year. I'm not sure. Maybe his agent has already done the homework and the market for Derek Carr is not as robust as we thought it was. But this surprised me, though. I thought Derek Carr would get probably closer to $40 million rather than 35. So that is significant. That means you obviously have more cap space if you sign Derek Carr to put a better team around him. So certainly something worth noting. And then the other big thing in this story, and I think we kind of knew this, but when someone like Albert Breer writes it, puts some more credence to it. The Jets are doing their due diligence on the entire quarterback landscape. Obviously, we know about Jimmy Garoppolo. We know about Ryan Tannehill. But two of the names mentioned in this piece today on MMQB, Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. Breer wrote that the Jets are open to a Geno Smith reunion or even luring Daniel Jones. Now, it seems like Daniel Jones and the Giants are either going to work out an extension or Daniel Jones is going to get the franchise tag. But the fact that the Jets are doing their homework there tells you they're exploring every single option possible. And the other big takeaway from the Breer story is just confirming what we knew. that the Jets' plan A remains Aaron Rodgers, but they're interested in Derek Carr. And once again, I don't think if you've been following the Jets and been following how this offseason's gone so far, I don't think this is that big of a shock. Don't think it's that big of a shock at all. So ultimately, it's a big week for the Jets. Joe Douglas will be speaking tomorrow. If you're watching this on Monday, it's tomorrow, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll go live after Douglas speaks and give you our big takeaways from what he said. Saleh is going to speak virtually on Thursday. And people are saying, well, Saleh's not at the scouting combine. If you remember, Robert Saleh last year said him and the coaching staff are not going to the combine. They're going to stay back and they're going to scout from the facility. They're going to get ready for free agency from the facility. Turned out that was okay, given what happened with the Jets draft. By the way, NFL.com named the Jets draft class as the number 1 draft in the NFL this year. So I'd say do whatever they did last year, do it again this year, because it certainly worked. So not a big deal there. I saw some people freaking out about that. They did the same thing last year, and they had a tremendous draft. So combine gets underway. Obviously, the big storylines are going to be what happens with these quarterbacks. From a Jet perspective, I feel like the doomsday scenario is they miss out on all these veterans, and then like their Hail Mary attempt to sell Woody Johnson on their plan to fix quarterback is maybe they draft someone, maybe they trade up for someone. I don't see it, though. I'd be really surprised if the Jets take a quarterback in any capacity in the first round. Now, a guy to watch is Hendon Hooker, because I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah's conference call with members of the media over the weekend, and he said that if Hendon Hooker did not get hurt, Hendon Hooker, by the way, tough name to say, Hendon Hooker. If Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee, did not get hurt, he believes he would have been a first-round pick. So perhaps if he's there in the third round, maybe the Jets could take a swing on him. Perhaps. Even then, I'm not so sure he would make it that far, or if the Jets would even do it. But keep that in mind as well. But overall, don't freak out if Carr takes another visit, because he's going to. And I think it means it's rather obvious the Jets still have every intention in doing their due diligence on Aaron Rodgers. Now, I believe the Packers general manager, Brian Gutekunst, is going to be speaking to the media tomorrow at the combine. So tomorrow could be a big, Aaron Rodgers update day, especially because we know he's now out of the cave. So we got that out of the way. Rodgers is out of the cave. Derek Carr is out there, and this is going to be a big week for getting some traction on how things could unfold with the Jet quarterback spot and obviously several other teams that need a quarterback as well. So we'll open it up now to your comments and questions. Let's see what you guys are thinking. I'm wearing my Gusbuster hat, of course, for the Gusbuster Umbrella Hotline. The way to join the show, you take the StreamYard link I posted in the comments. You put that in your web browser. You copy and paste it there. You come on, have decent internet, and we'll bring you on the show to talk about the Jets and whatever else is on your mind this afternoon. All right, open it up to your comments and questions. Let's see what you guys are thinking. Your calls coming up as well. Let's get to a super chat that I just saw, because those always go first and cut the line. This super chat is from Donald. Donald, I don't see a question, but if you got one, we will get into it as quickly as we can. Let's keep going here. Comments, questions, anything Jet related that is on your mind. Jesus writes in, Jake, would you consider channeling your inner Derek Carr and dye your hair? Well, I went mustache for Rodgers, dyeing my hair for Carr. This is not a good picture of Carr. Does Carr have a unique hair color that I've never noticed? I mean, he's got black hair. So you want me to dye my hair black in honor of Carr? I like Derek Carr. I don't love him that much. I don't think I need to dye my hair for him to be a Jet. If he wants to be a Jet, I'll be very happy with that. Very pleased with that. JJ says, I'm now a closet Jet fan. Welcome aboard, JJ. Finger Lakes Jet fan says I was having some asthma withdrawal. Well, welcome aboard. We got a lot to talk about this week. It's going to be exciting. All right, let's take some calls here. Doug, you're first up today on the Gusbuster Umbrella Hotline. What's going on, Doug?
Not much. I wonder what's going to happen first, if we find out who the Jets quarterback will be or if Patrick Kane will be a Ranger by that time.
I think Kane's going to be a Ranger. I think that's pretty much done, right? I mean,
yeah, it's just all the cap gymnastics. I know you're an Islanders fan, so you don't care, but as a Rangers fan, all the cap stuff is just annoying.
Yeah.
But relating it to the Jets, it's also just like it's the same as the Ranger fan with Patty Kane right now. It's just annoying doing all this waiting right now because it's kind of I saw Matt O'Leary tweet like he doesn't know what to do for free agency predictions because you don't know who the hell the quarterback's going to be. So
yeah, Doug, it's tough as like a YouTube content guy because it's like you want to talk about other things, right? But so much of what happens with the Jets is contingent on who the quarterback is before you even do any of the other stuff. So it's like we can't do draft previews. Do they even have the 13th pick? It's like it's difficult,
It's just everything's just in a state of like confusion right now because just no one knows what's going to happen. It just feels like there's a massive pause button on the offseason right now because until you find out that quarterback, like say, I don't think this will drag out for the next couple of weeks when the new league year starts. I'd be shocked if it goes till then. But say you don't have anything figured out till then, you got to be like, okay, what the hell are we going to do during free agency right now, and how are we going to sign these guys?
No question, Doug. So who do you want? Who's your quarterback? You want?
I would definitely go Rodgers over Carr, but then Carr would be second.
I'll let you go, Doug. It sounds like your phone is exploding there, but I agree with you. Let's see. Let's open it up. Comments, questions. I'm a little behind here, so I want to make sure I compile the super chats as well. Let's see. Shane writes in, Jake, can you please tell your Michael K story? Which specific story, Shane? Maybe you can give me a follow-up to that because I have a couple of K stories. I'm a big fan of the K-ster. Hawk writes in, I've heard Gustbuster umbrellas are unflippable, unflappable, and unleakable. Jake, can you confirm these rumors? Hawk. I mean, you finally have a comment that makes sense. Absolutely. I can confirm it's the best umbrella on the planet. I mean, enough said. The Gustbuster umbrella hotline, and it speaks for itself. Gustbuster is the best umbrella out there. Go to gustbuster.com and use the promo code Jake. You've got 10% off on any of your orders. Billy writes in, Jake, I really have trust in our general manager. His work speaks for itself besides the Zach Wilson pick. Look, I don't think Joe Douglas has been perfect. And that's okay because he still has done way more good than bad. So for all those who are worried about the Jets, and I get it, you're Jet fans, we all are. I have faith in Joe Douglas being able to execute this plan here. I really do. This is the most confident I've felt about a Jet front office in years. So they'll figure it out, man. I feel good that they're going to end up with either Rodgers or Carr. That's just my belief. Now, if they can't get either one of those guys, then yeah, I don't love the plan B options. I don't love Jimmy G or Ryan Tannehill, but I think it's going to work out for the Jets somehow. I really believe that. Christopher writes in, Jake, who gives us a better shot at getting to the Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers? For 1 year, I say Aaron Rodgers this year. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is going to be 39 years old. So, I mean, Lamar Jackson's 26. So I think over the course of multiple years, it's Lamar. But if I'm the Jets, I can't wait around for the Ravens to maybe trade Lamar Jackson. I got to strike right now with Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully Rodgers got out of this cave and he says, I want to be a Jet. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? And as Albert Breer also wrote in his story, the big thing to note with Rodgers is the amount of money that he makes, essentially meaning that he can control his destination without having a no-trade clause. Because no team's going to acquire Aaron Rodgers unless they know he's committed to playing for them. He's not going to retire on them. So it's on Rodgers to first tell Green Bay what his plans are. I think he's going to tell him he's playing, and I think there's a chance they trade him. I've continued to say all along, if Rodgers is traded, I believe it's to the Jets, but I think there's a chance he's back in Green Bay. I don't think that's out of the question either. Ahen writes in, Jake, do you think Carr is the kind of guy that would accept a little less in order to help build the team around him? I mean, I think Carr will take a market value contract. Now, market value is seemingly lower than what I thought it was with that story that came out over the weekend that Carr is looking for roughly $35 million per. But I think the reality is Derek Carr is not looking to break the bank and he needs to get $45 million. I think Derek Carr is at a place in his career where he wants to win. So I think you bring in Derek Carr, you're not worried about his commitment. Mr. Tuda writes in, how would you feel about a T. Higgins trade? It depends what you give up to get him, because then you got to pay him. Right? If the Bengals were to trade him, it's because they're not going to be able to extend him. Shane wants the Michael K story when you interviewed him on Radio Row. Love that story. It's a great story, Shane. So I'll tell an abbreviated version here because I know people want to hear about the Jets. When I was in college, so this is years ago, I went to Ithaca College, and I was lucky enough to do my radio show from Radio Row in Houston several years ago, 7-8 years ago now, whatever it was. And we were able to get press credentials and do our Ithaca College radio show from the convention center at the site of the Super Bowl. And Radio Row, there's a bunch of people walking around promoting products, athletes and whatnot. But for me and my friend Dan, we wanted to interview a bunch of the different broadcasters there. So I grew up a big Yankee fan. I listened to the Michael Kay show every day on radio. And we went up to Michael one day and we said, hey, we'd love to have you on our show. And he said, happy to do it. Let me know when you guys are free. So we scheduled a time for Michael to come on. And the craziest part about all this is Michael didn't realize we were in college until after we had him on the show the next day. We did this great interview with him. I thought it went pretty well. And all right, great interview. We talked about the Yankees coming up, talked about the Super Bowl, whatever. So this interview goes really well. He leaves, goes back to his table. Okay, cool. Next day, I see Michael coming up to us. He's walking over to us. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what did we do? Like, why would Michael Kay come back over to our table? Like, what does he want to say to us? Like, did we piss him off or something? Did we tag him in a tweet that he didn't like because we promoted the interview on social media? And he came over and he's like, hey guys, I just, it just hit me that you guys are in college. Like, that was an awesome interview you guys did. Like, stay with this. Like, let me know what I could do to help. Like, stay in touch. Gave us awesome words of encouragement. So since then, I've obviously stayed in touch with Michael Kay, and he's been a big mentor of mine in this business. So just a great guy. So I got nothing but good things to say, obviously, about Michael Kay. But that story was awesome just because he went out of his way to say nice things after we had him on the show. So there's the Kay story. Hopefully it didn't bore everyone to tears as I'm telling that. Let's see. Boomtown writes in, following up on that last point, if he plays both seasons, you're talking about Rodgers playing 2 seasons, is the window with Rodgers legitimately 1 or both years? I think every year you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you're planning to have a chance to win it all. So I think if he plays 2 years with the Jets, you have a 2-year window to win it all. That's what I'm looking at. Jesus says, Jake, is it snowing where you are? Absolutely not. It is 70 degrees and sunny. I've lived in Houston almost 5 years now. This is the nicest February it has ever been. It was 80 and sunny all weekend. Crazy. Jesus says, any news on the Hall of Fame game matchup? I have heard it's going to be the Jets and the Browns. We shall see when that's confirmed. But I think there's a pretty good chance it's Jets and the Browns. Let's see. Roe says, I'm not even a Jets fan, but Jake got me following and rooting for y'all. Well, Roe, we appreciate you. Tyler writes in, Jake, any draft prospects you really like besides the tackle position? Yes, I like several of the wide receivers in this class. I don't know if the Jets would do it at 13, but I'm not against it. I'm not against it. Mr. McMoney says, Jake, what's your favorite Jet memory? I mean, beating the Patriots in the playoffs. I mean, that's probably every Jet fan's my age favorite memory, right? Come on. Mr. Boise says, Carr is a long-term solution. No quarterbacks drafted for at least 4 years. Rodgers 2 years left max, not worth what he would cost in capital. See, I disagree because I just don't think you can win a championship with Derek Carr. I think your path in the AFC with Carr is hard. I think you're a wild card team. I think with Rodgers, you have a chance to win the division, and that should be the focus. If you can't get Rodgers, you pivot to Carr. I agree, but I also don't think we just assume Carr's here for 3 or 4 years. Really? Do we know that? Because what if it doesn't work out for Derek Carr? He has a year like what he had this year with the Jets and they missed the playoffs and Robert Saleh, let's say, gets fired. Then you got a new coaching staff, maybe a new GM that wasn't responsible for Derek Carr being on the team. They're going to want to bring in their own guy eventually. In theory, Carr's here 3 or 4 years. And I think that's realistic to think, but it's not a lock. Every Jet fan that's just we get Carr because we're getting him for 3 or 4 years. It's I don't know if that's a lock. It's not a foregone conclusion. Things change in the NFL quickly. Who would have thought Derek Carr would even be available this year in the first place? Lee says, Rodgers loves the spotlight. He's staying with Green Bay. If he loves the spotlight, he'd come play for the Jets. So that's contradicting there. He'd go to a new team. That doesn't make any sense. Michael writes in, what do you think the long-term plan is if we trade for Rodgers? The long-term plan, I don't think the Jets have really thought about the long-term plan, Michael. I think they're focusing on a 2-year window if they bring in Rodgers. Maybe they draft someone this year to sit behind Rodgers. If you get Rodgers for 2 years, you get 3 off seasons to plan for life after Rodgers. That's why you really need a commitment for 2 years from Rodgers, I think, ideally. Now, he could change his mind. I'm sure he told the Packers he was going to play for several more years when they gave him a 3-year deal last offseason. But you really, it's in the best interest of the Jets, obviously, if they can get Rodgers for 2. We all understand that. Rich says, all hail Steve Asman. Yeah, Steve is in here. I'm sure he likes the hat I'm wearing. The U writes in with a super chat. Hey, Jake, wouldn't it be nice to send Zach to the XFL for more work? Yeah, I think there's something to that. Now, I don't know if like the second pick in the draft would go to the XFL, right? But I think it'd be cool if the XFL kind of became like a feeder system for the NFL where you could actually designate players to go play. And it's kind of like, for those who are baseball fans, it's kind of like winter ball in the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico. A lot of the players playing that to get extra reps in the offseason. It'd be cool, man. I've been to 2 XFL games already this season. The last 2 weeks, I went to Houston Roughneck games, and they're the best team in the XFL again. And so the games are a lot of fun. It's real football. Obviously, you're not getting 50,000 people there, but there were like 20,000 people there last night. And like, it's really cool, man. Like there's certain cities, warm weather cities, or cities that have like an indoor arena that could certainly support like a spring football team. And I think the XFL is really cool. It's never going to be huge, but there's definitely a purpose for it. Billy writes in, 396 watching, 44 likes. Smash the thumbs up, guys. Amen. Altoona Sandwich writes in. Not, of course, in reference to the great Altoon. I have just emerged from my sensory deprivation chamber. Rodgers will be a Jet. Altoona has emerged. From your lips to God's ears, Altoona. We'll see. I still think there's a chance it happens. Just because there's been no news doesn't mean it's not happening. See, a Rodgers trade is very complicated here. So it's not like it's just like he just says, all right, trade me to the Jets, and it happens. Like, things got to be worked out. Boomtown says, Jake, would it cost our first-round pick this year to pry Laramie Tunsil out of Houston? Yes, because Tunsil's coming off basically an all-pro season. He was phenomenal this year. He's the lone great player on one of the worst teams in the NFL. So Texans aren't just going to give him away. And then you got to pay him, which I'm okay with paying him. He's great. You know what you're going to get. He's young. He's an offensive lineman, but I don't think the Texans are going to trade him. If they are going to trade him, you're absolutely going to need to use the 13th pick. 100%. All right, let's go back to your calls right now. And we go to our guy with the guitar. V-Man, you're next up on the show today. What's up, V-Man?
What's up?
How are you, V-Man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream, V-Man. Now,
yeah, you're doing the nice weather. It's like fucking in the 20s down here. It's like after you had a day where 2 straight days of 60 degrees, and it goes down to 24. Crazy ass weather.
Yeah, it's February though, man. You know what's coming.
Yeah, no, it's February. It's late February. It should be like in the 40s. But no, back on the quarterback thing. I know. I just honestly, I see either way. It's looking good for me. I feel confident because look, I still think we can get Rodgers, but I think on the plus side is if you don't get Rodgers, it looks like the Derek Carr market isn't as big as initially thought to be. So I think that's a positive sign for the Jets. If you can't nab Carr, you're really only competing in maybe 1 or 2 teams probably. In the end of the day, because the only one legitimately right now we know of is the Saints. It's probably going to be maybe. And what the report was, he's going to meet with 2 other teams. So, like, what are the 2 other teams can that be really?
Yeah, so if I had to guess, the 2 other teams would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers potentially, the Carolina Panthers potentially.
Well, the Panthers already said the report was the Panthers is going to be out of their price range.
Yeah, let's see if he takes a visit though. Anyway, right? It only hurts his leverage the more teams he meets with, or helps his leverage, I should say.
Yeah, I guess you had a point. But like I said, it looks like the market, like that market isn't going to be that big. So, like I said, your fallback plan is looking pretty good right now if things don't pan out with Rod.
Right. I agree with that. V-Man, you're the man. Thanks for the call. Let's keep going here. Your comments and questions. Franco writes in, sending Zach to the XFL will be beneficial for his growth and possibly trade value. Is this an option? This would be great. It's not an option. It's not. I'm saying it'd be cool if you had the opportunity to do something like that. Maybe down the line, football will get to a point where that happens. So that is not an option at all. William writes in, what should the plan be for the backup quarterback? I think this is determined based on who the starting quarterback is. Hypothetically, if your starting quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, you need a better backup because Jimmy G has a history that tells you he's not playing 17 games. So it all depends on who the quarterback is. Now, I'd like Mike White back either way. I just don't know how realistic that is. Coop says, I don't buy the Carr can't win us a Super Bowl. I get the competition is tough in the AFC, but man, any given Sunday, right? I've seen crazy upsets last season. Yeah, there's upsets every season. The best two teams in the Super Bowl last year were both the 1 seeds. Like, you still got to be a great team. Like, yeah, there's examples. The Giants had their run with Eli, but it's hard, man. I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback. I don't think we truly know what he's like with a stable situation, good defense, etc. But I know what Aaron Rodgers is like with all that. He's a 4-time MVP. Like, I'll take my chance for a year or two with that guy. A. Hearn says, if Joe Douglas has another draft class like 2022 and the Jets fail to make the playoffs, do you think Salah goes and JD stays? In this scenario, yes, Ahan. I mean, if you're telling me the Jets draft the offensive and defensive rookie of the year for the second year in a row, obviously, you know, there's going to be a different conversation around Joe Douglas. But if you just kind of play out where we're at, Douglas going into his 4th full offseason, 5th year overall, Salah in year 3, it's not unrealistic to expect the Jets to make the playoffs, need to make the playoffs for both guys to definitely be back in 2024. But obviously, how the season plays out will determine how we feel about the direction the Jets are headed. Like this year, going in, I thought the Jets would win 7 games. Well, they won 7 games. But I'm not satisfied with that. They were 6-3, 7-4, and they collapsed. So you know what I mean? Like how you get to your record or how you finish is a big part of how you evaluate, you know, the type of year that you had, if that makes sense. Like I thought the Jets were 7-10. They did. They went 7-10. I'm not satisfied with that, though. I think most Jet fans aren't. There was certainly a lot of good from this year, but the second pick in the draft is not going to be a factor on the team this year. Like that, it's a big deal. Now they're in the spot where they have to figure out quarterback. Otherwise, they're in for another rough year next year or a year where they come up short and don't make the playoffs. Altoona Sandwich writes in with a super chat. Please send Jets Forever to the Phantom Zone with General Zod. A lot of Jets Forever hate today. I don't blame you, Altoona. I don't blame you. Back to the calls we go. Alan, you're next up on our show. What's going on, Alan?
Hey, Jake, what's going on? Again, please sell some players. I know they're winning now, but please sell. And for the Ranger fans, tell their defenseman not to spit in another guy's face. That was kind of disgusting yesterday. One off the topic Jet topic I'm talking about is, are you surprised that Joe Klecko has been so vocal anti-Aaron Rodgers? And are you surprised that the Jet brass hasn't told him to shut up a little bit?
I mean, he's allowed to give his opinion, no?
I understand that, but you still want to pursue the guy, and you'd like to have some positive talk about Aaron Rodgers. It seems like he's going on every single station just ripping on the guy. It's kind of strange for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's asked the question about it, obviously being, you know, associated with the Jets, and he gives his opinion. Now, we're going to have Klecko on this channel in the coming weeks. I'm working on scheduling that, so I'll push back on him if we talk about it, because I think some of what Klecko said is basically, you know, what he's hearing about Rodgers without maybe getting to know the guy or like talking to actual teammates who feel differently about him. That's how.
And what's funny living down here in Charlotte, what I've been hearing lately is Darnold going to get a 2-year deal here, and they're going to go all out for Anthony Richardson. That's been the big talk down here in Charlotte. They're not going to give Derek Carr the $35 million. I was surprised that they wouldn't even bring him in for a visit, but I kind of think they're going to try to go back with Darnold for a couple of years and maybe swing at a Richardson. It makes more sense. Maybe they think that's where they're at. I'm a little surprised they're not going after Carr, but that's what I'm hearing down here in Charlotte.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Alan. I am surprised too. I don't completely buy it though. I think there's still a chance they bring in Carr for a visit. It's smokescreen season right now. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, Carolina does need to draft a quarterback. And they're sitting there with the 9th pick in the draft. They could be a team that maybe trades up for one. Wouldn't surprise me. We know the Bears are looking to trade. What if Frank Reich's like, here's our big move. Go get me Bryce Young. I'm finally going to get my guy. That's a young quarterback that I can mold into a star. You know, in Indy, I was supposed to do it with Andrew Luck. He retired on me. Then I had to go with Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. We never had a young guy that could be our franchise guy. Let me get that guy. And maybe he convinces ownership to trade up. I could see that happening. I also could see them staying at 9, as Alan talked about. And yeah, they take Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, who's ever there. It's a fascinating draft. It really is. Chris writes in, Derek Carr was an MVP candidate in 2016. That's 2016, Chris. He's never been that player since then. He's been good. That was his outlier year. Aaron Rodgers has won 4 MVPs. He's won 2 MVPs 2 of the last 3 seasons. We're not even comparing. Wait, stop comparing Carr to being one of the greatest quarterbacks in Jet history. The bar is very low for that. I understand that's what we'll sell ourselves on if they end up with Carr. And I'm cool with that. But the idea you should settle for Carr or just pay Carr whatever and get him when Rodgers is still out there, that's not how you run your team. If there comes a point where Rodgers is indecisive and you don't know if you can get him or not, then yeah, you have to move the Carr. But we're not there yet. All right, it's still February 27th. I think we have some time here. Mr. McMoney says, is the USFL done for? Well, the USFL picks up after the XFL, so we're just going to have spring football all throughout the spring into summer. USFL is not done. They have a TV contract with Fox, so there's some money there. I think the XFL, though, is better positioned for success because they have The Rock. They obviously have the ESPN contract. I think that's a big deal. Azuma says Carolina needs a quarterback. They decided to go with Darnold. I mean, they could bring Darnold back as a bridge quarterback. That's all Sam Darnold is. If they bring Darnold back, it's because they're drafting a quarterback. It tells you all you need to know. That's how you got to look at it. Donald writes in, if there's a top 3 to 4 quarterback available at 13, do we take him? I would be very surprised. Very surprised if the Jets drafted a quarterback at 13. Very surprised. I don't see it. I don't see it. This team, if they're going to take a quarterback, they had to have missed on like every veteran to get to that point. I don't see it. Billy says if Aaron Rodgers is starting, Zach needs to be the backup. I think Zach's on the team if Rodgers is the quarterback. I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. There's a lot of unknown with all this. I mean, you know, I saw someone wrote in the comment here about all the Packers are now open to moving on from Aaron Rodgers. Adam Schefter's been saying that for a month already. And Breer wrote that they see, you know, Jordan Love is a guy capable of starting. Like, why sign Carr when Rodgers is still very much a strong possibility? That's the point. We're not at a point where you need to pick or choose or you lose out on Carr because you're waiting on Rodgers. We're not there yet. R. Malowski writes in, being a Jet fan, what will go wrong will go wrong. Probably lose out on Rodgers and Carr and get stuck with Tannehill. I mean, if you feel that way, I don't know what to tell you. I think the Jets are going to end up with either Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr. We'll see how it plays out. Jets Carpetbagger says, are you giving away Gusbuster hats? I got to ask my dad for that. This is the only hat I own down here. Joe says, Jake, are you on board with Carr? I think it'd be better all the way around. No Rodgers drama. You have your draft picks up to 5 years. I'll pass on Aaron. I'm on board with Carr, but I prefer Aaron Rodgers over Derek Carr. The love this fan base has with Derek Carr just because he's competent is laughable. And look, he's a good quarterback. I'd be the first to tell you that. I have been telling you that. In fact, I remember I did a video after Carr had that awful game against the Steelers on Sunday night, and there were a ton of Jet fans who were like, no to Carr, because he had one bad game. But you happened to watch that one bad game, so you formulated your opinion based on that. My opinion on Carr is based on watching him for his entire career. He's a good quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. You're in the AFC. You want to win a championship, you got to go through at least Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, probably at least two of them in the playoffs to get there. Maybe the emergence now of Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert. Like, Lamar Jackson's still a Raven for now. Like, you got to try and get the best possible QB when you have this window the Jets have, where you're not paying your young stars. Stern writes in, Jake, I missed the first 20 minutes, so maybe you answered this, but thoughts on when we get a decision at QB? You think the dominoes for Carr or Rodgers begin to fall soon, right? I could see something going down by this weekend. End of this week. It's coming. I know it feels like we've been talking about it forever, but in the reality, the Super Bowl was 2 weeks ago, right? Chris Russo writes in, I hear Gino's coming back. You heard wrong. Nick says, Rodgers has not won a Super Bowl in 13 years, but let's forget that point and go negative on Carr only. Who's going negative on Carr, Nick? You misunderstand my Carr points. I think I'm very fair on Carr. I'm realistic about Carr. He's a good NFL quarterback. He's not Aaron Rodgers. Oh, Rodgers hasn't won a Super Bowl in 13 years. Cool. Derek Carr's never won a playoff game in his 9-year career, ever. All right? He's quarterbacked the team to a winning record twice in his life. He's good. I don't hold that against him entirely. The same reason I didn't hold Matt Stafford's issues with the Lions against him. But Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Like, the fact I need to sell you on Aaron Rodgers is like, it's mind-boggling to me. Momo says, hello, Jake. I feel if Aaron Rodgers really wanted to be a Jet, he would have gotten word out to Woody while he was in the black hole. Well, no, because he didn't have his cell phone in the black hole. How do you know that Rodgers hasn't communicated to Green Bay that he wants to trade to the Jets? And it's not out there yet. We don't know. JD says, do we know Aaron Rodgers won't be on McAfee tomorrow for sure? He's not going on McAfee at all. Next time he goes on McAfee, it's after he's on a new team or maybe he decides to come back to Green Bay. Joe says, what A-Rod do you get, though? Is he committed? Does he show for training camp? Well, of course he shows for training camp. It's mandatory. That's a big question in all this. You don't want Rodgers if he's like going to be a part-time quarterback. That's the caveat here. I believe that Rodgers is going to be much more than just a part-time quarterback. I think he's going to be invested. I think he cares about his legacy. And the guy, you see the difference with Rodgers and like Kyrie Irving, who I've seen that silly comp. One doesn't like basketball. One loves football. Kyrie does everything possible to not play NBA basketball. Aaron Rodgers is quirky. He's a little prickly. He's odd. Okay. The guy loves football. That's never been a debate with Rodgers. The guy dealt with a broken thumb on his throwing hand, a knee and a rib injury this year, and refused to miss any time because he wanted to play. The guy loves the game. If he's coming to the Jets, I believe it's because he looks at it like he has the opportunity to win it all. He has the opportunity to enhance his legacy by getting a second ring. Let's see. Stern says Rodgers won't half-ass it. If he comes here, he'd be willing to he'd be coming to a team with a chance to win. I think that'd fire him up. I agree. And I think the fact that Nathaniel Hackett's here and he doesn't have to learn a new offense is a big deal for him. Anthony says, Derek Carr gives us playoff hopes. Rodgers gives us Super Bowl hopes. Come on, people. There's nothing wrong with Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr. I find it funny that, like, we're Jet fans here. We're trying to poo-poo Aaron Rodgers. Like, come on. 1189 says, I really think Rodgers is going to stay with the Packers or retire. The Jets are not high on his list, or he would have been traded by now. Disagree. We have no idea what Rodgers is thinking or what he's doing yet, 1189. How do you know he would have been traded by now? That's based on what? He just got out of his cave on Friday. Anthony says, get Rodgers, have Wilson back him up, watch him learn. Okay, Zach can watch and learn. Doesn't mean he's going to get better. And get Rodgers just so Zach Wilson can watch and learn is the laziest take you see amongst Jet fans. Rodgers plays for 2 years. Zach Wilson's a free agent. Then what? You're paying Zach Wilson based on what you saw in practice or the preseason? How'd that go last time around? Zach Wilson looked damn good in the preseason his rookie year. Tyrone says, Jake, I love what you said about he has won a Super Bowl, a playoff win, but A-Rod is a better choice for a team tired of losing every single year. I don't really understand your comment here. Aaron Rodgers is better than Derek Carr. I cannot say that enough. I mean, yes, obviously Aaron Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl, but other than Patrick Mahomes, what active quarterbacks right now have more than 1 Super Bowl? And Mahomes is off to the greatest start in NFL history by any quarterback. I mean, that's the truth. It's hard. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has 11 playoff wins. Derek Carr has never won a playoff game. He's been to the playoffs once, really twice, but he was hurt in 2016. That was the Connor Cook Texans playoff game. Ugh. Hawk writes in, if Lamar was a free agent looking to take a team-friendly deal, I would say no thank you, but I appreciate the call. Well, that's just silly because Lamar Jackson's an elite quarterback. Is he perfect? No, but come on. Keith says, I think Jets Forever is really one of Jake's buddies. Most definitely is not, Keith. Do not lump me in with Jets Forever. How dare you? Jesus Jerry says, Jake, would you partake in a darkness retreat with Margot Robbie? I would, but I kind of feel like it defeats the purpose if I can't see her. R. Malowski with a weird take says, this how it will play out. Rodgers retires, Carr to the Dolphins. That's not happening. We get crazy as it sounds. We get Justin Fields. That's not happening. Thank you for that, though. FM says, Jake, can you send me that hat? No. If your takes were better, maybe I'd consider it. This is why I can't send you that hat, FM. Congratulations. You are today's dumbass commenter of the day. FM writes in, how about we trade Sauce for Fields? FM, to the shadow realm you go. We're putting you in timeout for 5 minutes. My God. Sauce for Fields? Are you out of your mind? Good Lord. JJ writes in, I heard Jets Forever is BK's burner account. He uses the mess with Jake. It might be. Shren says, we're screwed if we don't get Carr. Not necessarily. What if they have Aaron Rodgers? Sargent says, the main argument for Carr is that fans don't want to wait. That's the thing, right? Even if the Jets said, hey, Derek Carr, we want you right now, how do we know Carr signs immediately once the Jets say that? What if Derek Carr doesn't want to play for the Jets? What if he'd rather go to an NFC team? Like this, you're 100% right, Sargent. That's a great comment. Like, how do we just assume Carr wants to be a Jet? How do we know that? We don't. Anthony says, all this talk about Derek Carr not having a real defense his whole career is bogus. I don't see why we want Carr over Rodgers. Well, to be fair to the Carr truthers, I guess we have a Carr truther segment of the fan base now. It is a factor. He has had an awful defense basically every year he's been the Raider QB. But it doesn't completely exonerate Derek Carr. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's in that 12 to 16 range. A Jake Asman fan makes a salient point. Anybody could be Margot Robbie in the dark. Great point. Great point. Jets Forever says, hey, Jake, I don't know why some Jet fans don't want Rodgers. Have they not seen our quarterback play? They're afraid to get hurt if he leaves after a year. I say you go for it. You're the Jets. You have a chance. City Bert has got a super chat for us. Thank you, City Bert. Aaron Rodgers has had his chokes in the playoffs. I don't think we could expect a Super Bowl, but a more deep playoff run, especially in the stacked AFC. I mean, to be fair to Rodgers, there's been games where his defense has completely failed him in the postseason. And there was also a game where he didn't play that well against the Niners last year at home in the divisional round. So, yeah, it's all part of it. You know what I love about Aaron Rodgers, though? You know you're going to the playoffs with that guy. We can't say that with Derek Carr. We're projecting with Derek Carr. With Rodgers, we're pointing to the fact he's been the MVP 2 of the last 3 seasons. Ron writes in, Jake, is there a defensive tackle in the draft that might be as good as Q if we trade him? Just a thought. No, because Quinton Williams is not someone that you just find in the draft. You find him at the very top of the draft. His name is Jalen Carter, the kid from Georgia that could be the first pick in the draft if the Bears don't trade the pick. Certainly could be the first defensive player off the board. Eddie says, are you prepared for a worst case scenario? I think the Jets have several plans here. Several. I'm not prepared for anything. I'm a Jet fan. I'm going to sit here and react like we all are here on this YouTube channel. The Za says, Carr wants to be a Jet because of the Italian hammer he had for lunch with Salah. Yeah, you know, one visit to this Italian restaurant in Summit, New Jersey, and Derek Carr is in love. You can see it there. This is Nate Hackett is like pounding a martini. Nothing like it. Derek Carr's visit was a lot like a business lunch in the show Mad Men. That's what I was told. Anthony says, is Lamar even a topic or that's long gone? I don't think, I think it's a topic for sure. I just think it's unlikely the Jets would get him. Now, obviously, things change if Carr signs elsewhere and they don't get Rodgers. While they're waiting for Jimmy G, you bet your ass Joe Douglas is going to be calling the Ravens. My dad has confirmed that there are no Gusbuster hats left. So there you go. Sorry to disappoint. JR Jet says, regardless of who we get, it feels good to be a premier landing spot for a QB for once. Everyone in the game feels this way, and quarterbacks see us as a top choice, not bottom. We're definitely trending up. Yeah, there's no doubt they are, JR, and that sometimes gets lost when we talk about the Jets on a day-to-day basis. Like, clearly they are trending up. It's unfortunate, though, that, you know, today, for example, the Jets get named the #1 rookie class on NFL.com for this past year. #1 out of 32 teams. It's awesome. But then you think back, it's like, man, if they just got the Zach Wilson pick right, where would this team be right now? It sucks. It just shows you how hard it is to find a quarterback. And I don't need to tell Jet fans that. We all know. Anthony says, just imagine a Jets-Chiefs AFC title game. I don't want to know the results, but what a game with Rodgers. You have a chance. That's not impossible, Anthony. Doug says, Carr has never been fully tested in bad weather. Small sample, but not good so far. Worrisome. Look, there's no perfect option, Doug. If your biggest concern with Carr is the cold weather, that to me is not good enough reason to not sign him. That's how I look at it. Real Ministries says, those who are against Rodgers simply don't like his personality or beliefs. The Rodgers hate is weird. There's certainly something to that. Not everyone, but there are certainly some, especially those in the media. Billy says, Jake, looks like they all came out of the woodwork. Hawk, FM, Jets forever. All we need is Mateo to complete the team. Yeah, if we got a bang Mateo, Arthur Smith comment, we've hit the comment section trifecta today. Stern Riffs with a super chat cuts the line. People blame Rodgers for everything. If Bostic catches that onside kick against Seattle, then Green Bay would have made a second Super Bowl. We got to stop with the BS. That's true. That's 100% true. Momo says, Jake, when do you think a Rodgers decision is going to drop? I could see it being by the end of this week. Jordan says, why is your show so late today? Well, Jordan, we had a lot to get done this morning. Been busy. JJ writes in, do you think they could patch the offensive line in free agency? If so, what do you think they would use number 13 on? I think there's a chance they could go wide receiver at 13, JJ. Also, could see a scenario where they would go defensive tackle, maybe safety, although I don't love that. It's a very good safety class, though. Jesus says, Jake, we all know how much you love Chipotle, but what food do you hate? Hate's a strong word, I'd say. I'm not a big Indian food fan. It's all right. I like Greek food, but it's not incredibly high on my list. But I'm a foodie at heart, so like I'll eat anything, honestly. Kev writes in, this stuff the Jets fan type silly. Rodgers versus Mahomes AFC Championship game would be good for us. At least we give ourselves a chance, giving ourselves no chance. Yeah, can you picture Derek Carr in an AFC title game? Right now, I can't. I'd love to be wrong if they sign him. I could picture them in the playoffs with him, which is good enough for me right now. Anthony writes in, Jake Asman, probably my favorite Jets streamer. Thank you, Anthony. In my opinion, you got the best takes that all of us should want as well. Look, I'm not always right, but I just try to be honest. These are my opinions. I don't work for a team. These are my unfiltered, honest opinions. That's it. You can disagree with me. That's cool. We do it every day, but you're always going to get my honest opinion on things. That's what I try to do. Let's see. FM says, Jake, we're going to have to go heavy at O-line because AVT, Becton, and Tomlinson are unreliable. Well, Laken Tomlinson, unfortunately, is back. He's under contract. I think you hope he has a bounce back year with Keith Carter now as the new O-line coach, coaching him up. Becton, I agree with you. He certainly is unreliable, but I don't think they're going to go into the year banking on him. And I disagree with you, though, on AVT. I don't think he's unreliable. He had a freak injury last year. It was only a matter of time until we had the offensive line truthers. Here we go. Tritton says, what's the point of getting Rodgers? We don't have an O-line. What's the point of getting any quarterback then? If your strategy is, well, the Jets don't have a line, it doesn't matter, then what's the point? And I disagree. They do have a line. It was beleaguered by injuries last year. And I don't think Joe Douglas is an idiot. He's going to add a quarterback and then look to improve the offensive line. Kelly says, could care less about making the playoffs and losing. Why? Making the playoffs is important. They haven't done it in 12 years. It is important. I want to win a Super Bowl, though. Kelly says Super Bowl victory or bust. Well, you got to make the playoffs first to do that. Momo says, any word on Becton? He looks like he's in tremendous shape. Have you guys seen the pictures Becton's been posting on his social media? He looks awesome. I'm rooting like hell for him. Dimitri says, Mitchell was a good pick late round. I see that again. Yeah, if the Jets could find another Max Mitchell and Michael Clemens in the 4th round this year, that'd be awesome. Mike says, I don't know why people think getting Rodgers for 1 year is going to net the Jets a title. It's like $1 billion jackpot and someone buying just one ticket thinking they're going to win. I mean, Mike, the Bucs signed Tom Brady. They won a Super Bowl. The Rams traded for Matt Stafford. They won a Super Bowl year 1. Why can't the Jets be that team next year? Why not? You're a Jet fan, so you're going to just assume the worst, but why not? Did the Bucs have this rich history when they added Brady? They don't won a playoff game since their last Super Bowl win in 2002. Like, you got to go for it, man. You got to try. Take your swing. Regular guy says, hey, Jake, the issue is Jet fans are tired of the short-term wacky QBs. We want a quality long-term QB. I get that, but why are you settling for Carr if you don't have to yet? That's my point. There might come a time where Rodgers is indecisive and you don't know what he wants to do, that you have to pivot to Carr. My point is we're not there yet. We're not. More of your calls coming up. I do want to give some love, though, right now to Bagel Master, my hometown bagel shop where I grew up in Syosset on Long Island. They sent me like 100 bagels the other day in the mail, so I wanted to give them some love on the show. 43 Cold Spring Road in Syosset, the best bagel spot you're going to find in that area. Muttontown, Oyster Bay Cove, Plainview, and surrounding areas. Check it out. Their owner, Vadim, is the man. He sent me a bunch of bagels and all this other stuff, man. So shout out to my friends over at Bagel Master for the hookup. If you're in the Long Island area, Nassau County, check it out if you want some phenomenal bagels. They're the best. Tell them I sent you, too. Let's see. Azuma says, Carr has reached the ceiling. I think we know what he is. He's a good quarterback that the situation around him has to be perfect for you to win it all. If you can win it all. It remains to be seen. Momo, thank you for your super chat, Momo. Here's your question or comment. Just think the audacity Rodgers would have if he came to the Jets and took number 12. Never going to happen. If he came to the Jets, maybe he wouldn't want number 12. He wore 8 in college. Elijah Moore might need a new number. Who knows? All right, back to the phones we go. Our next caller is always honest. His name is Honest Abe. What's up, Abe?
My man, Jake. What's going on, brother?
How are you?
It's snowing. It's raining. I don't even know what's going on here in Detroit anymore. It's just like death amongst us. But a couple things I wanted to reach out about. Number one, if Derek Carr's agent calls today and says he's made his decision, he wants to sign by March 1st, it's the Jets. And that's his number one option. If he doesn't want it, if you guys don't want it, that's cool. We'll move elsewhere. That would put the Jets in a very tough position over the next couple of days. And honestly, I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, that kind of conversation, because Derek Carr did say he wants to help recruit in free agency, and we're only about 15 days away from there. So I think something like that conversation is going to happen relatively soon. Also, I'm not sure if you caught Get Up this morning on ESPN, and I love the fact that the Jets are getting some national media love and not just the butt of every joke now. They're being talked about as, a potential real team. And it's weird to even have that conversation. But they're talking about if the Jets get Aaron Rodgers, it's basically Super Bowl or bust. We haven't been to the playoffs in like 1,000 years, and now we're talking about Super Bowl or bust. These talking heads need to get their heads out of their rears and just understand like the level of ineptitude that the Jets have had for decades and decades. A playoff game, we can be the 7th seed with a playoff loss, and we'd be like, okay, it's better than what we've had. But to them, it's Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl or bust, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Abe. Look, it just anyone who tries to tell you that making the playoffs would not be a good thing for the Jets is nuts. Even if they lose in the wild card round. You have to find out if you have the right head coach. If you have a GM that could get a team to the playoffs, like they need to make the playoffs next year. They have to. They have to. I don't care who the quarterback is. They have to make the playoffs next year. It's not good enough to not. All right. I'm sorry. I just watched the Giants with a first-year head coach and a first-year GM make the postseason. The Jaguars were picking first overall a year ago. They won a playoff game this year. Not only made the playoffs, they won a game. Like, let's go, man. It doesn't take forever to rebuild in the NFL. For us Jet fans, it seemingly does, because that's all we've known the last 12 years. And if the Buffalo Sabres make the playoffs in hockey this year, the Jets will have the longest playoff drought in North American sports, but who's counting? Like, let's go. Enough. Dante writes in, a fellow Long Islander. That's what's up. What's up, Dante? Strong Island, baby. Billy's worried about Honest Abe keeping his eyes on the road. Noted. The Za says, is Bagel Master ship bagels? I miss New York area bagels living in Buffalo. Reach out to them on Instagram. I'm sure they would. Mine was shipped in like a sealed up box that was frozen. It was spectacular. John says, did I miss V-Man's call? You missed it. It happened. It was electric. He was playing the guitar. Jack says, who will the Jets not re-sign? Lawson, ? I think Lawson is very much 50-50. We might get some news on Carl Lawson this week, by the way. I'm sure Douglas can meet with his agent this week in Indy. Maybe a reworked contract, perhaps. I think they're going to cut Corey Davis, but we'll see. I mean, Douglas speaks tomorrow. He's going to be asked about Carl Lawson, I have to imagine. Bonesy's sick of waiting. He needs Rodgers' answer. We all do, Bonesy. We all do. Couple more, then we'll get out of here. This super chat is from Citybert. Sorry I didn't see this earlier, Citybert. Thoughts on the new MLB rules? Sorry for the sidebar. The pitch clock is amazing. I love it. And everyone who's anti-pitch clock is going to get used to it, and they're going to love it too. 2.5 hour baseball games instead of 3 hours, 3.5. That's slog. Oh, I cannot wait. Pitch clock is great. Baseball needs to have a quicker pace, period. Last year, a ball was put in play on average every 4 minutes. It's not good enough. You're not growing your game to an audience that's going to watch for year upon year, decade after decade, if the pace remains this slow. There's too many games. You got to have more action. There'll be more stolen bases this year. This shift is going away, so there'll be more balls put into play. The new baseball rules are going to radically change the game for the better. I'm no Rob Manfred fan. I've been very critical of the commissioner, but I think people are going to really like these rules. There's no doubt. We got some quarterback news here. The Commanders have released Carson Wentz. No surprise. They just saved $20 million on their salary cap. Vincent says, when are you going to wear your cowboy hat on this channel? I don't know. I wore it all weekend at the rodeo cook-off here in Houston, Vincent. FM says, how can you be okay with trading pick 13 for a 1-year rental? Because I don't know if it's going to be pick 13. Keith says, everyone's like, just sign Derek Carr. What if Carr doesn't want to play in New York? Exactly. We don't know. Carr's still taking other visits. Pat McAfee's tank top says, Carson Wentz should go to the XFL. Him and A.J. McCarron lighting it up. Former Jet QB Brandon Silvers, one of the stars of the Houston Roughnecks last night. I was watching him, speaking of the XFL. All right. Few more, then we got to get out of here. I'm on the radio in 25 minutes. Dylan says, if the Jets get Rodgers, do you like the thought of bringing in Alan Lazard or David Vacateri? Yeah, I like both those guys. I mean, Lazard's a free agent. So you could just sign him. Momo says, what's up with Pat McAfee in a tank top? That's his bit. That's what he does. What's up with Ken Rosenthal always wearing a bow tie? That's what he does. Anthony says, if we keep pick 13, who are we going after? I think a tackle would make the most sense. Jack wants Quan back. I agree. I don't know if that will happen, though. I think it's more likely they bring back Quincy Williams and Quan Alexander. But they could bring back both. Wouldn't be shocking. Jet Life says, let's go for Wentz, LOL. No. People say I kind of look like Carson Wentz. I enjoyed that comp a lot better when he was an MVP candidate his second year in the league. FM says, Jake, are you okay with giving Darnold another shot? FM, you're trolling. I will not acknowledge you, even though I just did. Jerry says, is Berrios being cut? He could be a restructure guy. He's not coming back at his current rate. There's no way. So he's either cut or they restructure. Jet Life wants Wentz as a backup if he's cheap. No, you don't. Here's the thing with Wentz. He turns the ball over way too much. You want your backup quarterback to come in and be a game manager. Be Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett. You don't want someone coming in flinging the ball over the place. That's not what you want. All right. Before we get out of here, reminder, Patreon exclusive podcast is coming. Probably will drop either tonight or tomorrow on the channel. You'll get a shout out if you sign up. It's patreon.com/Jake Asman. We give you a bonus podcast that you won't get anywhere else on YouTube every single month, only on Patreon. You can message me directly. Got a lot of things in store with the Patreon this offseason. Now that the combine's here, we can start kicking some of that stuff into gear. So check that out. Patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. The link for that is in the description for this video. Big thanks to everyone who took time to watch today. My name is Jake Asman. Should there be breaking Jets news, we'll go live and cover all of it. Hit the like button on your way out of here. And, of course, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Everyone enjoy their Monday. We'll talk to you guys soon. And to the Knicks fans, big litmus test tonight. Let's go Knicks.